Views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly Neff. This hit show will illuminate your senses and empower you beyond your daily stressors and hardships. Renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly will captivate you with far-reaching topics and amazing guests as you wake to the greatest version of yourself. Learn to tap into your intuitions, think critically about our world, heal emotional and psychological wounds, and follow your passions to live your dreams. Each week, you'll learn how to navigate the global shift of consciousness and explore the deeper knowledge within. Welcome home. Now here's your host, Dr. Kelly Neff.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Kelly Neff, and you are listening to Lucid Planet Radio on Transformation Talk Radio, CRN Digital Talk, and WBLQ 1230 AM, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New York. Stay with us for the next hour and let us help you experience healing, inspiration, and knowledge. Because every week on Lucid Planet Radio, we have got some of the most gifted scientists, healers, speakers, and authors helping you to become the greatest version of yourself. And remember, you can always find out more on the lucidplanet.com and stream all of our podcasts for free on lucidplanetradio.com, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Stitcher, etc. Just search for Lucid Planet Radio. And you can also connect with me on Facebook and Twitter at the Lucid Planet with Dr. Kelly, and follow my new Instagram account for all my weird and wonderful life adventures. You can also visit the site, thelucidplanet.com, to find out how to nominate yourself or someone for the show, how to become an advertising partner to our extensive audience across over 11 million homes in the U.S., and just to see, what's going on. So I hope you visit the site and get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you if you want to come on the show. And today's show is about something that is very therapeutic for me and I feel is necessary during what has been kind of crazy, chaotic, intense times as we wrap up 2016, which is the big picture, pulling ourselves away from the minutia and the struggles of our kind of mundane day-to-day human experience to explore kind of the vastness, both in human consciousness and in our universe. Who are we? Where do we come from? These are questions I think about all the time. And for so long, science and spirituality have presented us with these seemingly opposed answers to this question. And yet more and more we're discovering really an intersection or a shared space where both science and spirituality seem to complement one another and help us really understand ourselves and the cosmos. We've got the ancient wisdom of the mystical traditions that are suddenly being supported by physics and other hard scientists, really leading us to a deeper and more comprehensive understanding of consciousness and our place in the world, and also causing us to ask many more questions. And as someone who's trained as a scientist, but who's also a spiritual person, I really resonate with this. The state of the world today is very interesting. Humans, we can do amazing things. We can also do the most terrible things. We can be very creative. We can be very destructive. We are literally creating new worlds, and we're reshaping the one we live in. And in many ways, we're kind of standing at the boundary between worlds. And what do we learn from exploring these boundaries? And how can accessing these boundaries help us develop flow and creativity that we can use to find answers to the problems facing humanity? These are just some of the things I think about a lot. And so I'm thrilled today to welcome multidisciplinary scientist, author, and designer Dr. Bruce Damer to the show. Now, Dr. Damer is collaborating on a new model for the origin of life and in the visualization of spacecraft architectures to provide a viable path for expansion of life and humanity beyond Earth. Very cool. He began his career in the 1980s developing some of the earliest user interfaces for personal computers. He led a community in the 1990s, bringing the first ever multi-user virtual worlds to the internet. And since 2000, he has supported NASA and the space industry on numerous simulations and spacecraft designs. And his creative practice is to journey across the liminal boundary between rational thought and what is referred to in the spiritual realm as mystical experience or thought experiments by science. And these journeys have brought him to some very far frontiers of conscious thought, which he has returned with stories shared in spoken word and performances. And you can find out much more by visiting his website, Dahmer.com. He's also spent 25 years chronicling the history of computing in his DigiBarn Computer Museum and creates archives of countercultural figures such as Dr. Timothy Leary, Terence McKenna, and others, and currently serves as a principal scientist at Digital Space and an associate researcher in the Department of Biomolecular Engineering at UC Santa Cruz. Woo, that is some resume. Let's please welcome Dr. Bruce Dahmer to the show. Hi, Dr. Dahmer.
Hey, Kelly. You're using, by the way, the German pronunciation of my last name, but it's actually
Dahmer?
It's Dahmer, the British, but there's also a French Canadian. I'm from Canada, so when I'm in Quebec, it's Dahmer. Doesn't it sound more dashing?
It really does. Doctor, I'm sorry. Justin and I, right before we called you, we had this debate, and I was like, I'm pretty sure it's Dahmer or Dahmer, which I'm going for. But Dahmer, I'm sorry, I apologize. I guess, Dr. Dahmer, the best place to start is, I saw this hilarious video of you performing and presenting with this flat earth panel at Symbiosis. And they introduced you as this spaced out space scientist.
Right. Yeah.
What did you think about, how did you achieve this nickname? That's pretty awesome.
Well, I actually co-wrote the script for that whole show, so.
Good job.
Yeah, what did you think of it? We had J.P. Sears and Kumari there, two real comedians along with me.
Well, what I thought was really wonderful was that, a sense of humor in these times when everyone's very easily offended and very tense, and people often have a hard time disagreeing with each other and kind of holding opposing views. And so it was nice to see just the lightheartedness, which often doesn't have a place in science. And so I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed your breakfast theory in particular.
Yes, folks, the Earth is not flat. That's old theory from yesterday. It is, in fact, a pancake.
And where does the syrup go when it runs off the edges?
That's right. Breakfast theory predicts that when you pour the syrup, it always flows somewhere. Therefore, there must be an edge. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of fun with that.
I thought that was great, and it was incredibly well received. At one point, people were throwing tortillas at you or pancakes. I don't know what it was from crepes.
Yeah, we handed out the team was done by Chris Pezza, who is like 25 people worked on this, but we handed out 1,000 tortillas, and people started winging them around. They were the flat Earths. And at one point, Kumari, who's a well-known spiritual comedian, from the film Kumari, it's a great film. He's trying to lead a guided meditation, which he and I designed as the blue syrup carrying the blueberry down through the chakras. And in the middle of the meditation, he pauses and says, "But I still feel the Mexican bread striking my body." We're just throwing them, he's slamming into Kumari.
It was great.
J.P. Sears, who's a really good comedian as well, he just came up with stuff. He's just brilliant.
I just loved when you did the pancake theory. And he's of course famous for the ultra spiritual. He said, so when you did the pancakes, he said, well, what if I'm gluten-free? So I don't know if this pancake world really applies to me.
Actually, his J.P. Sears way was, "Hey man, you are so insensitive, man. I'm gluten-free, and if your pancake theory is true, man, I can't walk in bare feet. You are just..." and he was supposed to do that as soon as I brought the equations up. So as soon as I moved to the equation flip chart, he just had to lay in on me. So that's how we arranged for it.
Awesome. And so I guess maybe a broader way of looking at this and other conspiracy theories is there any chance that the Earth is flat?
No.
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 Okay. So what is it about humans? Do we feel like we don't know everything? So we therefore feel like we're being lied to? Are we just bored? Are we dreamers? Why are humans so unbelievably drawn to conspiracy theories?
Well, it depends on the culture they're raised in. So, for example, if you go to Denmark, people just are not, they're skeptics. Their whole cultural persona, their whole training is not necessary to believe in anything that's said to them. But in America here, well, we've had 60 years of commercial advertising thrown at us, and now we have a reality TV guy attempting to be the president if he's going to be president.
Attempting. I like that.
If the Electoral College can be tweaked, he may not be president, but that's what our friend Larry Lessig's working on at the moment. But, this is what America is. America, and it's ironic, Russia is the same way. Russians believe in all this nonsense. So great superpowers tend to harbor all these tricksters and pranksters, perhaps.
And kind of grandiose thinking.
Yeah.
I think is a big part of it, yeah.
I think it's because we're isolated. So Americans, as Russians, we're in a little bubble of our own. We don't know much about the outside world unless we travel. And even when we travel, we may not learn about it. But we're in a self bubble of some kind. And so we'll believe anything. But if you go back 50 years, people were much more level-headed, I think, before social media and before all that stuff.
Yep. Well, it's definitely kind of creating a funhouse mirror on social media, where it's a mirror.
It's hilarious.
Wonky ones. Yeah. And so it just leads to this complete nonsense. And then I've heard even the algorithms on Facebook and whatnot, they're designed to only show you more of what matches your belief system.
Yeah.
So it's like creating a virtual cognitive bias. And so then you really think it's like true. So I feel like that's kind of what's happened with this little flat earth thing. I want to talk more about that. We got to take our first break already. So when we return here on Lucid Planet Radio, Dr. Bruce Damer and I are going to discuss much more about science and spirituality, consciousness, space, creativity, all the good things. So stay with us and we will be right back after this short break.
You can be the highest version of yourself. Wellness coach and natural beauty expert Dr. Agnes Frenkel is on a mission to help you play the game of your life. Win in vibrancy, health, and beauty. Because you deserve it. Dr. Agnes goes beyond the limits in her personal coaching sessions to revolutionize health and wellness. Now is the time to unleash your true power. For more information, visit dragnesfrenkel.com.
Tune in to Dynamics of Diversity Radio, scripting the new narrative for immigration with leading experts Kripa Upadhyaya and Steve Tanijo on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This show will remove the noise that often accompanies discussions on this topic and share a new perspective on the dynamics of immigration and diversity, ever reminding us that together we are all at the core of innovation, excellence, and positive change. Visit OrbitLawPLLC.com for upcoming topics.
Are you ready for a game changer? Sarah Westall is bringing you Business Game Changers Radio. Sarah brings you leading experts, visionaries, and newsmakers who provide the best commentary on big issues and cutting-edge innovations. Sarah's 20 years as a business executive will help you think like an entrepreneur with expertise, energy, and attitude. Tune in to Business Game Changers Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Do you want to achieve your goals? Do you want to strengthen relationships with others? Do you want to improve your financial status? Colette Marie Steffen is partnering with Mark Kettenbach to bring you an energetic upgrade online experience. Unfold and develop your full potential. Visit energeticupgrade.com today for more information. That's energeticupgrade.com.
Introducing the Lucid Planet, a digital gathering place featuring cutting-edge, high-vibrational content that will empower and inspire you to become the greatest version of yourself. Visit the Lucid Planet today to stimulate your mind, body, and soul as you connect with a global community of like-minded people. The Lucid Planet is edited by renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly Neff, who is here to help you cope with anxiety, connect to your higher purpose, uncover your true passions, and live your dreams. Dr. Kelly's fresh, compassionate perspective emphasizes growth, transformation, healing, and thriving. Even in the face of adversity, say goodbye to bad news and low vibrational media for good and become part of the larger collective of people working together to navigate the global shift of consciousness and transform the world from within. Join the planet, the Lucid Planet. Visit thelucidplanet.com. Welcome home.
We are back on Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly, and my guest today is Dr. Bruce Damer, who is talking with us about human consciousness, flow, outer space, and all the things. But before we continue, Doctor, I just want to make sure everybody knows how to contact you to find out more about your work. I know you're working on a new book project and you've got tons of awesome content on the internet, including that video of the flat Earth panel you did at Symbiosis.
Yeah, it's all linked off of, I have a personal site, which is just my last name. It's damer.com. And I got it way back when you just logged into internet and got your own domain name. But yeah, nice. The old days.
Free GoDaddy.
And for listeners, the Levity Zone podcast, levityzone.org, you'll like it. It's a blend of a lot of ice cream flavors.
I have to say, Levity Zone episode 50 it's just this beautiful kind of sound, textural storytelling journey. Very cool. I really appreciated that. And
thank you.
Yeah.
You know, that was performed with Android Jones also at the Lightning in a Bottle Festival in May. That was we did a stage show with that, with me doing the telling and him doing live painting. It was really, really something.
I love him. He was like the 5th person I ever had on the show, I think. And wow. I was so nervous because he's like notoriously a weird dude, and but yeah, he's really awesome. And I wanted to bring this up before we continue, which is there definitely seems to be a connection between the kind of transformational festival culture burner community and wanting to learn more about altered states of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And also being more into conspiracy theories and also wanting to make fun of conspiracy theories. What is it, do you think, about this kind of subculture that makes us just more, I say us because I think we're both definitely parts of this subculture, kind of makes us more open-minded?
I think it's a marketplace or it's a bazaar. So if like, for instance, at Symbiosis, we had, there was something called the Silk Road, which was this fantastic street that had medieval type, an Arab kind of a souk, really. And they really did it well. I mean, and so then we had a circus tent and we had Android's dome show, Samskara on the hilltop. And then you have 5 pounding stages and you have incredible speakers and you have yoga and you have body work and it's an amazing bazaar of the bazaar, but also the inquisitive and the powerful and the altered reality and the art. I mean, they're phenomenal experiences that have come out of this culture.
Absolutely. I feel so grateful to have been a part of it. It definitely has been one of the things that changed the course of my life. And after my first festival was LIB and Symbiosis in 2012. That week I did both. It was crazy. And after that, I ended up leaving my, teaching job and my research job. And I just kind of ended up on this totally different journey where I felt like just psychology, just science wasn't enough. And I needed to understand the other side of things. And of course, like I was saying in the intro, there is a unity here between the mystical experience and the thought experiment.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. And in fact, that's kind of how I lead my life. When I was a little kid, when I was a little boy, if I had a stimulating day and I would try to go to sleep at night, there would be all these color flashes behind my closed eyelids. And I'd open up my eyes and there would be a dark room, just my brother up above me in the bunk. And then I said, you know what? There's something going on. And I started to minimize myself. And I didn't realize I was almost doing a Buddhist type practice at that time. Yeah. And then the flashes started becoming pictures and forms and images and landscapes. And I could open up a world almost at will in the right moments. And I went on to build my entire life on going into those magical visual states and then coming back with goods. And when I was 14, I read about Albert Einstein, that he also did what he called Gedankenexperimente, which were thought experiments, where he would go into a very deep state and become a beam of light, for example. And then he had some of his greatest insights. And, Newton got hit on the head with an apple and an angel spoke to Descartes. But perhaps the greatest scientists, artists, technologists like a Steve Jobs, they're all mystics. They all have a mystical side, and they all draw from, the great inspiration, whatever it is and wherever it comes from.
Absolutely. I'm so fascinated even by dreams and how people download the answers to their questions in dreams. And I mean, even Einstein talked about this with the theory of relativity, that he dreamed it. He was in a field and there were cows and all the cows got knocked over, but they didn't look like they all knocked over at the same time from where he was sitting in the dream. And then that got him thinking, I don't know if that's true or not, but I've read that. And I always wonder, to what extent are these kind of altered states, whether it's dream or meditation or a psychedelic induced state, to what extent are they responsible for some of the greatest advances that we've seen for humanity?
I think that they're responsible for pretty much 100% of it. I don't think, certainly the advances of making a frequency converter for a mobile phone probably took just a lot of logic and looking in reference books. But for the big breakthroughs, it's always come from outside sort of mundane day-to-day list processing consciousness. It's always come from some other place, because it's out of the box thinking, it's flow state. This new book, Stealing Fire, coming out in February, that's going to talk all about this. I was just part of a course about that with the authors. So it's being identified really more specifically because athletes get into flow state. Wimbledon winning tennis players, they don't even have memory of what they're doing. They're so in tune in this state, this altered reality, to get that ball into that far corner, and it's all over the place. And it's the great hope for humanity that if we can tap this more and more and more, we can resolve problems. We can also do healing. We can heal people that are really living the shadow side, like America's about to experience its shadow, so in some sense, in the next 4 years, we're going to be faced with the shadow. Yeah. And this is if you're in, and I know you are in spiritual work and healing work, that's the place you want to start from, is looking at your shadow, and that Always. This country is right there now.
And, when we're looking at these things, it can be scary, right? Going to the dark side and embracing that we have a dark side. And I think it's really important to recognize that spiritual bypassing is something that happens a lot, which is the idea that we just focus on kind of the light and the love and the good side and everything's fine. And if you have bad emotions, you need to let them go because we're all one and we should be more spiritual and positive. But true for me, true spirituality is both sides of the coin, the yin and yang, becoming unity, like by combining those sides of the duality. And I almost feel like what's happening now in America is that maybe we've been ignoring the dark side. So now we get a big dose of it. And we're going to have to accept that both sides are here. And I guess my question here is, how do we get into these states where we can begin to access other areas of our consciousness, including the shadow self?
Well, there's so many techniques. The one that's batted around most commonly is ayahuasca, going to South America and drinking a cup of very nasty tea. But in a sense, that's one route, but think of it like electricity. If you put your finger into a power socket, that's like taking a strong psychedelic. You will get woken up in a certain way. It will run through your system. It'll really zap you, but then you come down from it. But what if instead of that, you plugged in a fan, a cooling fan, or you plugged in soft music, or you made yourself a cup of tea? There's other ways to use the energy and the power, all of them valid. Something is, Vipassana yoga is in some ways like putting your finger in a socket too. That's an ordeal for a lot of people. So it's the same energy, just accessed with different tools.
And, it's just interesting because psychedelics are definitely a very direct pathway, but meditation, breath work, pranayama, yoga, those are all avenues. And even like exercise, or like adrenaline junkie stuff, like climbing mountains, all of these things can kind of like open us up to access other states. And I guess I'm wondering, for people who've never felt a flow state, could you maybe describe what a flow state feels like?
Oh gosh, it's sometimes a joy comes up and an opening and a realization, and then your mind just starts going, and it's not attached to anything. It's not attached to a feeling or something you have to do. You're lifted, and you see the artwork or the, how to make the hot rod go faster or whatever it is that you've put your intention out, and it's amazing. It's an amazing alternate reality.
And it's that you mentioned earlier too, where time kind of, you lose track of time because you're just so immersed in what you're doing, and it makes you feel so good. Just like I've just been doing, because it's actually time for us to go to break, and here I am just like asking questions. So we're going to take another quick break, and Dr. Bruce Damer and I are going to talk more about human consciousness. We're going to talk a little bit about the origins of life and virtual reality and kind of, where humanity's going. So stick with us, and we'll be right back after this short break.
Is traditional medicine not working for you? Do you still feel as if your health isn't 100%? Here at the Holistic Medical Center, Dr. Nushin Darvish and the qualified staff look through the dimensions of wellness and start a healing plan prioritized to your needs. Our physicians assess the whole you until complete health is achieved. Get the help you need by visiting drdarvish.com or call 425-451-0404.
Brand consultant Jen Morgan is here with Radically Distinct Radio to help you take control of your future and maximize your brand's power to produce results. Whether you're an individual trying to reinvent yourself and launch a new venture, or you're an executive trying to reposition your company to modernize your sales and marketing programs, Jen Morgan and the RAD Method empower you to play to your strengths and show up in the world as your most powerful brand. To learn more, go to jenmorgan.com. That's Jen with 2 N's Morgan.com, or call 206-972-5366.
Tune in to the Angels and Answers Psychic Radio Show with clairvoyants Artie Hoffman and Sky Siegel every Thursday for a 2-hour show, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Transformation Talk Radio. Artie and Sky deliver spiritual and motivational messages with passion and a sense of humor. Call in 800-930-2819 for live and on-air readings. Visit artiehoffman.com and skyofangels.com.
Tune in to The Jen Royster Show, intuitive guidance to inspire your life, each Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This amazing show is an inspirational hour that will take you on an epic metaphysical journey to discover the spiritual approach to life's greatest challenges. Dr. Jen is an internationally known intuitive counselor, spiritual teacher, and energy healer. Call in for intuitive readings and visit JenRoyster.com for more information.
Introducing the Lucid Planet, a digital gathering place featuring cutting-edge, high-vibrational content that will empower and inspire you to become the greatest version of yourself. Visit the Lucid Planet today to stimulate your mind, body, and soul as you connect with a global community of like-minded people. The Lucid Planet is edited by renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly Neff, who is here to help you cope with anxiety, connect to your higher purpose, uncover your true passions, and live your dreams. Dr. Kelly's fresh, compassionate perspective emphasizes growth, transformation, healing, and thriving. Even in the face of adversity, say goodbye to bad news and low vibrational media for good and become part of the larger collective of people working together to navigate the global shift of consciousness and transform the world from within. Join the planet, the Lucid Planet. Visit thelucidplanet.com. Welcome home.
We are back on Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly, and I am here with Dr. Bruce Damer talking with us about the vastness of human consciousness, flow, science, spirituality, and more. When we left off, we were talking about flow and the idea of putting ourselves into altered states of consciousness where we essentially download information, or information flows out of us. Dr. Damer has this Levity Zone podcast number 50, and he was just telling me that it all kind of flowed out of him. He'd wake up with ideas and they would just come out. And it really sparked some interest in me. I've always wondered, Dr. Damer, if you think that this is coming from our unconscious? Is it like entities that are whispering to us, or are we just downloading kind of from this universal divine? People talk about, divine creation, that we tap into it. Where do you think the information from the flow state is coming from?
I really think it's some sort of a field that we're all in, that we can't see, and we're only just now being able to measure it. And it's something that's difficult. It doesn't sort of respond to the crude instruments that we have in the lab. It's something that our bodies can measure, and it probably explains a lot of things that now we sort of put into other categories. But that this field is something to do with the interconnectivity of systems, and the systems, when life began, that's when it all started.
And, I know you've talked a lot about the origins of life and kind of where life was inanimate, it became animate, and then all of a sudden this field's been created and we've been interacting with it and creating it ever since. Is that about right?
Well, it's a guess, but what happens when life goes from just responding to physics and molecules emerge that can make decisions, like a molecule sits in a membrane, a little bubble of membrane, which is sort of like a protocell, and something comes through that membrane and the molecule gets triggered and it takes an action. It changes the probability of the future in a way that physics can't do. So what life starts out doing is making highly improbable things probable. So, and where it ends up is in our life today, when you have a coincidence, you meet somebody or stuff just seems to happen that defies explanation, synchronicities. Yeah. It's all because this fundamental property of life to increase the probability of connections and things vastly. And in the beginning, in the sort of the progenote world 4 billion years ago, it was a gigantic sensorium that could sense its environment chemically and then adapt through natural selection and evolution and then move to the next stage. And it was doing it step by step by step. And we're still in that sensorium somehow.
Does that mean we are still evolving? And what does that look like?
Well, the whole system's evolving. So with human technology, here in the Anthropocene,
yes,
where we have grids of highways everywhere and networks we're moving matter around differently. And I think if Gaia is an entity, Gaia senses us by our footprints left in her. That,
yes,
our highways leave these funny little channels and our buildings leave these little squares. And it changes the network and patterning of the microbial map that Gaia actually is. So if you want to have a conversation about global consciousness, Gaia would probably say, what the heck is going on with all this complex patterning that is impressed into me?
Do you agree with Stephen Hawking that within the next 1,000 years, we will have to vacate to keep humanity alive?
I think that, and this goes back to our Shepherd project that we did the design for NASA a couple of years ago. We need to find a way to extend the biosphere into the solar system. It's not only a good idea if we continue to grow our population and continue to want more energy. It's a good idea for perspective, for us to look back on our Earth and to have a huge perspective of the universe. And it's a great idea for the biosphere because, without us doing that, within a few 100 million years, the planet's going to go into a superheated state because the sun's getting warmer, according to James Lovelock. And the whole biosphere is doomed anyway, stuck at the bottom of a gravity well. So the greatest mission that humans could undertake is to say to Mama Gaia, hey, we're your reproductive organs. We'll help you make a new world. And so that life can carry on in some form. It's a great mission, and we ought to be grateful for being here anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I kind of bounce. I'm an optimist, but I kind of lately, especially, have been bouncing back and forth between like optimism and existential dread. Because so many of the markers, we've already passed kind of what the planet can handle in many areas. Or at least that's what a lot of the research is showing. And it's a little bit upsetting. So there's some people that are like, let's just frack everything because it doesn't matter anymore.
But
and then
there's, Kelly or Dr. Kelly, Dr. Neff, I ask always the same question to my friends who are having existential angst. I say to them, okay, would you rather live in the year, say, 1950, 1970, 1930, 1920, 1910, choose your year. And pretty much everybody says, I'd rather live right now. It's not just that we have smartphones. It's just that, and I asked them, well, why would you rather be alive right now? And he said, because look at all the wonderful products. Look at how we can connect with people all over the world. Look at our choices. Our health is better, everything. And I said, well, then aren't things going in a good way then, in a good direction? And maybe the story that we're being told is otherwise, and certainly climate change is real and we may be having some trouble there, but most of the stories that we're told are designed to make us anxious. If it bleeds, it leads. Yes. They're designed to put us into that fear state, not in a flow state, to get us to knuckle down and do whatever we need to do or buy a product or whatever. And it's pure and simple manipulation.
You're absolutely right. And it's funny, as a member of kind of the alternative press myself, how a lot of us have been targeted as fake news by the mainstream news, which is really like fake news. and it's just, it's completely bizarre. More and more people are waking up. I write for Mind Unleashed sometime. I think we've got 8 million Facebook followers and 30 million monthly page views. I mean, it's crazy. So people are looking for media that reflects the true story of what's really happening and how it affects them, rather than this kind of fear-based programming to keep us in a loop. I also just wanted to say very briefly, I would want to go back to like 3500 BC and check that out. Honestly, if I had a choice, I'd like to go way into the past, because we still have so many questions about the past.
Check it out until you start having a toothache and there's no dentist and there's no antibiotics.
As long as I have like some nice Egyptian oils and crystals, like I'm good. I don't need healthcare and medicine. No, of course you're right. I mean, it's a phenomenal time to be alive. It's hard to stomach because of the extremes, right? We can be so unbelievably creative, but so destructive.
What I think is happening, I call this the time of the great crescendo. And it's it's a symphony orchestra where in the piece where all the musicians start playing at the same time, and it's coming to some sort of a peak. So you get, the snare drums and then the trumpets and everything is going, and we're all going because there's so much energy in the system. There's so much creativity, and there's panic and there's doubt, but it's all one symphony. And after the crescendo, what happens is there's usually one instrument left playing. And it could be a beautiful oboe. It's a sound of, and that we've made it through the great clashing, the great finale. And then everybody comes down to this beautiful sort of denouement, this sort of conclusion. So in humanity, it's just, this is our time. It's our time to do everything at once. But I think keeping an optimistic frame is key, because just for your own personal well-being.
I completely agree. My boyfriend, James, he's been on the show a bunch. He's really smart, and he's like very much a vibrational alchemist type person who can work with all the energies and sound and frequency. And he and I lately have been getting into it, because when I'm like, oh my gosh, look at the synchronicity. It's amazing. It's a sign. And he's like, this is magical thinking. You keep doing this magical thinking. Mm-hmm. And part of me is like, ooh, I don't want to do magical thinking. But then at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, the world is kind of magical, mm-hmm. and maybe magic is the word we give to things we don't quite understand yet. And of
course, magicians are all tricksters. So their potions can take you toward delusion or inspiration, enlightenment. And they always have the same part. So you got to seek the right magician, and the right magician within you.
Oh, I love that. Of course, especially as like a archetype, because we do all have that magician within us. That is really awesome.
We have plenty of them trying to cast spells on us from outside too.
Yes, that's why you got to listen to your own magician. But thank you for the positivity. I definitely find that most of my guests are optimists, and I feel like we wouldn't be here in this, incarnation or lifetime or whatever you want to call it, if we didn't have an opportunity to change things for the better. Why are we here then? Just to hang out and make stuff? Maybe. But, I definitely believe that there's always the opportunity to make things better. So on that note, we're going to take another break, and then we're going to come back to wrap up the show with Dr. Bruce Damer. I think we're going to talk a little bit maybe about space and maybe about Timothy Leary and Terence McKenna. So stick with us. Right? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So stick with us, and we'll be right back.
Wow. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. This is Talk Radio to Thrive By. I'm telling you, I got to pinch myself some days, because when each of us gets called to do something that we so not thought was in our wheelhouse to do for a purpose that's so much greater than us, we get to show up and shine.
If you would like to show up and shine on the Dr. Pat Show as a co-host or sponsor, send us an email to inspire@thedrpatshow.com.
Are you sick of feeling overworked with no motivation? Take a break from the daily grind. Life coach Nicole Eisler is here to provide a healing journey of optimism. Passionate and caring, Nicole is no ordinary soul. Her dedication to helping everyone has no limit. Witness the power of positivity. Tune in every first and third Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific for Positivity Party Radio with Nicole Eisler on Transformation Talk Radio. For more information, visit BigDreamAwakening.com.
Introducing the Lucid Planet, a digital gathering place featuring cutting-edge, high-vibrational content that will empower and inspire you to become the greatest version of yourself. Visit the Lucid Planet today to stimulate your mind, body, and soul as you connect with a global community of like-minded people. The Lucid Planet is edited by renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly Neff, who is here to help you cope with anxiety, connect to your higher purpose, uncover your true passions, and live your dreams. Dr. Kelly's fresh, compassionate perspective emphasizes growth, transformation, healing, and thriving. Even in the face of adversity, say goodbye to bad news and low vibrational media for good and become part of the larger collective of people working together to navigate the global shift of consciousness and transform the world from within. Join the planet, the Lucid Planet. Visit thelucidplanet.com. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly. I am here with Bruce Damer, and we are talking about consciousness and really the intersection of science and the mystical or the spiritual. Before we continue, I just want to give a shout out to my mom, Sunny Neff, who is listening live right now in Florida. She just texted me, "Hi, Mom, I love you."
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. Anyway, so isn't that great that you can be talking about all this like heady stuff and your mom's like super into it? I mean, it's wonderful.
You have a cool mom.
I know, I do. My family's pretty cool, I think. I don't know how I turned out the way I did, but now speaking of pretty cool, Bruce, you hung out with some very cool people back in the day. Timothy Leary, Terence McKenna. What was that like? I know you kind of said you saw Terence McKenna off and then brought him back. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, a group of us, so this is back in 1998, 99, Terence and I did a couple of projects together where I put him into virtual worlds because he was really interested in cyberspace, and I was sort of the avatar guy. And so he came to the house here, and I sat him down in front of a big screen and said, "Here, you're traveling in cyberspace, and there's talking heads, and those are real people, and there's landscapes, kind of like what I saw when I was 9 years old. We were building them." And then he and I swapped places for a week. I sort of became more like him, and he became more like me, and then we compared notes, and then we heard that he had a brain tumor.
Wow.
A couple of months later, and we saw him in Hawaii at the last event held for him in September of 99, and he went through a surgery, and then come springtime of 2000, we were holding a vigil here, and he was gone. And then about 2 years later, I woke up in bed saying, "Terence, you left too soon. I'm bringing you back."
Oh.
And I felt terrible. I mean, Terence and I had planned to go on a tour together where I would handle the tech and the space side of the story, and he would handle the hermetic, monks.
Oh, man, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, we were planning an Esalen seminar series.
Oh, wow.
So then we got in this obsessive mode of collecting cassette tapes from Ralph Abraham, the trialogues with Rupert Sheldrake, and random recordings we could find, and then Lorenzo Haggerty put it all out onto the Psychedelic Salon podcast. So the whole community came together to kind of reconstruct Terence McKenna from cassettes, and his papers were destroyed in a fire in 2007. So we figured the elves had taken all the incriminating evidence.
There's maybe some truth to that.
But Terence was just a remarkable individual. He had some magical thinking side to him. He believed in this sort of 2012 concrescence of technology and forward escapes. And escatons and stuff like that. And I challenged him, all night I spent with him once, explaining to him why computers could not generate AIs, why computers, the way they were made was so different than the way natural systems work that we'll never see an AI. And I had talked him out of the eschaton by dawn. So Terence was one of the great tale tellers of our time, and he's worth a listen, but with a few pinches of salt.
Which is great, because that you got to keep people on your toes. Like we were talking about the tricksters, right? The magicians and the tricksters. You always got to throw some wild cards in there, I think. It makes for a more interesting time. And I never knew Terence personally, but you can just tell he was very playful.
Yeah.
And did you guys make any revelations about his life after he passed away when you were going through and kind of resurrecting him?
Well, we were planning a program in the year 2012 on Terence's life. And I was sort of co-designing part of this with Dennis McKenna, his brother. Mm-hmm. And I had heard through the grapevine that Terence had had a bad experience on psilocybin mushrooms back in 89 or 90, and that he had forsaken them. And he basically, they had led him up to the doorway to try to open his heart, and he wouldn't do it. He didn't know what to do because he was a very head guy. So he never cracked open. And then he was thrown into some sort of a bardo. This is all secondhand. Mm-hmm. But then I got this sort of, double checked by Dennis. He said, yeah, this happened. And for 10 years, my brother was talking about taking high doses of these very powerful substances to random people when he was himself had, was really, for the most part, except for a couple of occasions, staying away from it. And he felt like he was a fraud.
Oh, so you mean like the whole 5 grams in a dark room with a blindfold?
Yeah. It was terrible medicine. It was really bad advice. And over the years, you meet a 15-year-old who did that because they were under Terence's spell and they wanted to meet the machine elves, and they did it in their parents' house, and they were arrested running naked going through the neighborhood, and they were in hospital with a doctor shooting them with some kind of substance.
Thorazine or something.
Yeah, it's terrible. It was just terrible, terrible advice. And so what we had to do, it was very painful, is we had to tell the truth about Terence. And Dennis and I did this. He wrote about it for a period of time, and then I read the pieces at Esalen, and we said we need to let the community know that this happened. And it was this outpouring of love and appreciation about that Terence was a human being, a fallible human being. He got caught in the cage of fame. He started spinning the stories out until Rupert and Ralph even set a trap for him one day because they didn't believe him anymore. But, we had to humanize him, and we had to also have good medicine. We couldn't have this stuff going out that was really bad advice.
Completely. And I feel like that will destroy your legacy more. That advice just being out there and then kind of being turned into like an idol or a god because you've passed away and nobody can then contradict it. And so I think that actually is a better course of action to just let people know.
Yeah, the truth is always a better thing to just to put out. It really is, and I think we're going to find that more and more as a world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We've only got a couple minutes left of the show. Sadly, Dr. Daver, you've been just great to have on.
My pleasure,
I guess
Kelly.
In the last 2 minutes of the show, I thought I would ask you, do you, just to round it up, since we've been talking about space and consciousness and everything, do you think we are alone in the universe?
I think that we're very rare. From our work on origin of life and the evolution of life, the conditions needed to make complex life, not just microbial community, but complex life, are so extraordinary. And they have to be in the right order to make intelligence and language and energy using and traveling entities. That I think there's not that many perhaps it's a very big cosmos and there's trillions and trillions of habitable worlds everywhere, but I think we're extraordinarily rare, and it should make us feel a little bit more responsible for the gift we've been given, that we exist as thinking beings in this cosmos.
I love that. That's beautiful. We are special, unique snowflakes.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said on Duncan Trussell about, like, if there are other beings in the universe that are advanced like us, we have to assume their society would be willing to fund visionary nerds the way that ours is willing to, which, is also not necessarily something that would happen. Yeah, I like that. I agree. I think we are rare and we are special, and we need to kind of cherish human life, cherish the gifts we have. And that's really all we have time for. I want to thank my guest today, Dr. Bruce Damer. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Kelly. It's such a pleasure to talk with you.
Just so wonderful. You have such a soothing presence and voice, truly. And remember, you guys can find out more. Just go to www.damer.com. And also, please tune into the show every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Mountain, 2 p.m. Pacific. You can find out more about me at lucid-planet.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, The Lucid Planet, and download all of our podcasts for free, too, on lucid-planet-radio.com, iTunes, etc. Next week, we're kind of continuing on this kind of like heady, conscious vibe. I'm welcoming Michael Katz to the show, who will be speaking with us all about lucid dreaming and yoga nidra, or dream yoga. So I hope to see you then. Light and love, and have a wonderful week. Take care. Bye.
You've been listening to the hit show, Lucid Planet Radio, with renowned psychologist and author, Dr. Kelly Neff. Tune in each week as we illuminate your senses and empower you beyond your daily stressors and hardships. This hit show will captivate you with far-reaching topics and amazing guests as you wake up to the greatest version of yourself. Learn how to navigate the global shift of consciousness as you explore the deeper knowledge, passion, and purpose within. Visit lucid-planet-radio.com for upcoming show topics and to contact Dr. Kelly.